Welcome back, our co-host. He is a retired firefighter, safety engineer, New York Times best-selling author, John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
26 years he spent in the House of Delegates. Finally found his way out. The door was locked. He couldn't get out of there. He was the Deputy Revenue Secretary of the state of West Virginia, Vietnam War veteran, Mr. John Doyle.
Good morning, everybody.
Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
We've come to that part of the day and that time of the week where it's time for John and John to speak. So before we waste any more time with rhymes, it's time for John on John Crime.
You used to do poems every week. You don't do poems anymore.
It's all about the rhyming.
Doesn't he save them for Fridays?
Not anymore.
Oh, you don't do them anymore on Fridays?
They took a hiatus.
Okay.
I did them for that because they were fun, and then it became a job after about a year and a half.
And you get tired of the voice. Is that the
Love
thing?
the voice. Love the voice. Love the voice. So this is where Mr. Doyle and Mr. Gilstrap attack an issue from opposite sides most of the time. Sometimes they do agree. So I think Mr. Gilstrap went first last week. I believe Mr. Doyle should go first this week then.
Go for it. Bring it on. Bring it on.
This past Saturday, I attended the No Kings rally in Shepherdstown, 2,400 people, and the atmosphere was kind of like a fire department carnival, really. Lots of fun, lots of happiness, and some really fun-looking signs, and it lasted. It was officially 4:00 to 5:30. It lasted till by about 5:45, people had pretty much dissipated. But anyway, so the next day, I'm reading the coverage of these No Kings rallies, and I see that President Trump has said that I hate America, and that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has said that I am pro-Hamas, I think he said, or a Hamas supporter. And for heaven's sakes, even I then discover that our Congressman Riley Moore has said that I am pro-Hamas. All of this because I was a person who attended these rallies. Now, first of all, Riley knows me better than that. I was quite jacked up about that for about 5 minutes. At any rate, I think we need to stop and take a look at the language we use for people who disagree with us. I thought, for heaven's sake, protesting to me is as American as apple pie. You have to make sure you do it peacefully, which we did Saturday in Shepherdstown. There was one guy that had a sign that says, "Kill all Nazis." And he would start trying to get people chanting. And every time he would, 3 or 4 people would turn to him and say, "Would you back off?" Some in more polite language than others. But it was just basically, we don't want to hear that stuff. Everybody's waving American flags. So I think part of the problem is we've gotten into our silos and we presume that someone who takes a different point of view than we do must be an enemy of the country. And I just think we got to get out of it. And I do think that in addition to it not being the right thing to do morally, I do think in the long run, if folks like Speaker Johnson continue to take that attitude, I do think it will backfire on them electorally. And so, anyway, I just wanted to throw this out for discussion, and yeah.
I knew a few people who went to that rally, by the way. None of them at any point along the way appeared to me to be involved in any terrorist activities or pro-Hamas activities. They just weren't particularly happy with the current direction that this administration is taking the country.
I probably knew a quarter of the crowd personally, and lots of veterans there, fair number of people whom I know to be Republicans. It was a real, I think, pretty close to a cross-section of the region here. Incidentally, one of the reasons we had such a high turnout, I think, is because they did not have a rally in Martinsburg, which normally they would have. because it was the day of the apple harvest parade.
Yes.
And so it was just not. So I think we probably got 400 or 500 people from Martinsburg that came to the Shepherdstown one. So, but it was still, we had 1,500 back in June. So even if we only had 2,000, that was still a significant increase. Yeah.
Mr. Gilstrap.
And it was successful. I mean, we started without a king and we ended without a king. So it was a
job well done.
It was a very successful effort, much as the Coast Guard office in Martinsburg has prevented any seaborne attack of West Virginia since it's been here. So
100% effective.
Two of the greatest success stories going around.
Thank you, Senator Byrd.
It's interesting that this has been going around on Facebook, and I think that the left isn't used to getting called names. And from my side of politics, we've been called names illegitimately for so long, from everything, disgusting stuff from Nazis to Hitler to, all that stuff, homophobes to racists, and it's always been justified by the left because it's true from that worldview. And no, I don't. I think that the No Kings rally it's a bad name for it. It was peaceful, and I don't know. I don't know that there was a pro-Hamas element to it. I don't really know where that comes from. I think there was some element of surprise from the right. It's easy to confuse the BLM and the Antifa and the Tesla burnings and all the left-wing violence that has happened, to conflate it with anticipating that from the other nonviolent things. What I find interesting, though, is that was a Saturday, right?
This past Saturday.
On Saturday. I happened to be at a party. It was a kids' party, the neighborhood party. I don't have any little kids.
John, why are you attending children's party?
Hey, little yes, the judge said it's okay now. That order has been lifted.
That's great.
So it was a neighborhood party, and there were a lot of politicians from the right-hand side of the aisle. A lot of them from federal side as well as local side, up and down. The No Kings rally was not mentioned. Literally was not. There was a football game on, and there was some discussion of a ballroom. There was some discussion of other stuff, but the No Kings rally just was a blip. It wasn't. I don't think is important to the other side of. I don't think it's important to the conservative movement at all. I think it's wonderful that there was a peaceful protest. What I wish had happened out of it, because I'm not comfortable with how far right the right is going. I'm not comfortable with a lot of the messaging that's coming out. Y'all need to have one of those. You need to come up with a message. You need to come up with a leader, and you need to come up with a rallying cry that is something more than "I don't like Trump." And that's not. I didn't see any of that from the national news coverage or anything else. I think there's unity in not liking what is, but there's not yet a message of what should be. And I hope you all come up with one of those.
Much of what you say is right. I do think it is very, very similar to the Tea Party protests of 20 years ago, which were very much negative.
Yep.
At the beginning, then people began to say, oh, okay, here are the things that should be done. They come later. I do think, and this is part of what I think is critical on, we don't have a king yet, but I do think we have somebody in the White House who would like to be an autocrat, who is pushing the boundaries of the law in very many areas, one of which is knocking down part of the White House. He had said he wasn't going to touch it, but now apparently they're going to demolish the entire east wing of the White House to build this ballroom, which is almost twice the size of the White House itself. And I think, I'm looking at the pictures of it, not inside but outside, it looks awfully garish to me. there have been a number of changes made in the White House over time. Every single time they went to Congress, when Harry Truman put the balcony on, he went to Congress, and he went to the National Capital Planning Commission. They went through the procedure, enough so that the American public found out enough ahead of time that if they wanted to raise Cain about it, they could have. They didn't do that this time. Now, it may be that there is no law that says they have to. That is probably my biggest problem with the current president, not his policies, many of which I disagree with. We can argue about policy all we want. The fact that if he doesn't see an absolute, like you can't do this, he takes the attitude, I'm just going to do it. That is what an autocrat does. And I do think, yes, but we are so far successful, we don't have a king yet. We need to keep at it.
Well, and the left will have a lot more success if they embrace less royal viewpoints. For example, the left does not like states' rights. There's a very kingly, I'm not sure what the word is. It seems like collective you. The left embraces the notion of a monarchy. Don't like states' rights.
I strongly disagree with you on both those.
Let me finish. Yeah. We don't like to have states' rights. You do what you're told, right? Which gets down to a lot of complaints about the Electoral College. This isn't you. This is writ large. The only gather where you're told. COVID times. Do what you're told. Don't go to church. Go to the bar. Don't go to church. Only study what the government tells you to study. If you want to, we're going to demonize Thomas Jefferson because he had slaves. This is the narrative that you're going to have. We're going to do DEI. DEI is really, really important. Yeah. So, and we're not going to tolerate debate. To have debate is to be racist. This is the narrative. This is the drumbeat that the left is is allowing. The far left is inviting, not promoting, is inviting by having this far left drumbeat that goes uncorrected by any moderation.
That's about 5% of the left. Most of the left believes in states' rights in a number of areas. For example, when Governor Newsom stands up to this autocratic president who is going to federalize his National Guard, and incidentally, even Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, who is a very conservative person, has said, no. You can't come in and take take the National Guard from one state over the objection of that governor and send it to another state, which this president has attempted to do. But it has mostly been liberals who have been objecting about that. What you're looking at, John, is that when whoever happens to be in charge of the federal government, whether it's the left or the right, seems to think it's the federal government that should be doing the acting. I think that is really our country's history. And it is the responsibility of the people who are not in charge of the federal government to say, wait a minute, we got a constitution that says the federal government does some things and states do some things, and we can argue about in particular situations what the balance ought to be. But no, I categorically reject your saying it is the left that does all this nonsense.
Let me jump in here now because we're at that point where we have to switch.
All right.
So, John, you started. You got the last word. Now, Mr. Gilstrap, it's your turn.
Yeah, I want to kind of sort of sticking with the same theme. With regard to the ICE being able to do their jobs, and actually a Ninth Circuit decision that is now allowing the National Guard to back up ICE in Portland, of all places. Don Lemon was on the Left Hook podcast, one that I must say I don't listen to all the time, but it made the news where Don Lemon was here's the quote. And it's fairly long, so excuse me. If you believe in the Second Amendment, if you believe in the Constitution, black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally. Get a license to carry legally. Now, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I really, really think that's a great idea. I'm a big pro Second Amendment guy. I'm a big legally carry guy. I think everybody who wants to do that should be able to do that. Here's where he closes. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for? There's no actual call to violence here, but I will tell you there's an implied bit of really, really bad advice there that, if yes, everybody has a right to protect their homes, everybody has a right to protect their person. People who are legally allowed to carry firearms or any weapons, I think, should be allowed to do that. When you got people with badges who are knocking on your door or using a battering ram on your door to serve a warrant to take you away, that's a really bad time to pick a gunfight. And I think that was, I just want to say it's a really irresponsible thing to say. I'm not sure that there's a call to action, but what do you think his point was?
Well, first of all, I've never had a high opinion of Don Lemon. I just too often, to me, his logic doesn't compute, no matter what the issue you're talking about. I used to watch him fairly often when he was on CNN. I don't do podcasts, so I haven't seen him in quite some time. But this sounds like the kind of logic that I've heard him when he was, on the mainstream media. Now, in terms of defending yourself, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also think that law enforcement, we should rely on law enforcement to keep the peace, not our own weapons. We shouldn't have to rely on our own weapons to keep the peace. The problem is that nothing wrong. If somebody has a warrant for my arrest, I'm going to open the door and say, hey, you got a warrant, come on in. What has been going on in many of these cases is they just go around and sweep up people with black or brown skin, start looking through, your visa's out of date. You're here illegally. It's like that, I think, is a violation of the Constitution. What you're supposed to do is, if you have, let's say I know somebody in Shepherdstown named Sidney Schwartz who moved from Germany 10 years ago. And I think Sidney Schwartz isn't a citizen and has overstayed his visa. And I report him. Okay, fine. There is a specific accusation about that particular person. Yeah, go check him out. And if he isn't, say, hey, Sidney, sorry, you got to go. That is not what's going on in a lot of cases. There was a case of an ex-Marine out in California who got swept up in one of these dragnets, and it took, I think, several hours. He was just detained. They didn't listen to him. Finally, I mean, he didn't have his birth certificate on him, but I don't have my birth certificate on me.
No, but we got to be careful here about the law enforcement officers are doing their job. So if their job is to go and do a sweep, and I'm not going for a Nuremberg defense here, but if their job is to go and make an arrest, their job is to make the arrest. It's for the courts to decide the rest, everything that goes downstream. And I've actually had this discussion, not with regard to this, but regard to other stuff, the things that I've written. If somebody arrests me for a totally bogus charge, they're just wrong, and I resist arrest, they say, let go of me, and I fight back, God forbid, get a shootout. If I just arrest and I push away, that's resisting arrest and assaulting an officer and all that. And even if it's adjudicated that the officer's absolutely wrong and I was absolutely right, the resisting arrest charge survives the rest of it. I have still committed that crime. So these people who are being rounded up improperly, yes, it's improper and it's wrong and it shouldn't be done, but that does not give them the right to shoot the ICE agents or hit the ICE agents or to do the kinds of violence that they're doing. They don't have that right.
I never said it did give them the right. No, and I don't think it does. My point is, and it's not the ICE agents They are doing what they're told. My problem is with the people giving them orders that are clearly unconstitutional.
But the people giving the orders are not ones that are getting shot at and they're having violence done.
And
on
I
them.
do not justify the violence against the people. I'm simply saying that it is the policy of this administration to violate the Constitution.
Okay. The argument here has wandered. Okay.
No, this has been my point all along.
But if people were not attacking the law enforcement officers, there would be no need to have the National Guard in place to back up the law enforcement officers. We can, and again, their mechanisms. The courts move very slowly, right? The electoral
now
process
you're wondering.
works. No, I mean,
yeah, you are.
No, because you can't. What's happening now? In terms of protecting law enforcement officers who are doing their job, the law enforcement officers doing their jobs, and now we got
and the
National
military,
Guard
and the people supporting the ICE, so making sure that they're able to do their job are local law enforcement.
But they're not. They're being ordered to stand down, John.
No, they have in some cases, yes, but in many cases they're not. But this administration wants to send in the military anyway, even though they're not needed.
Okay, well let's go back. In the cases where they are being ordered to stand down, are you good with the military being there?
No, because the military is not trained to law enforcement. The answer is to the only answer would be if we had a national police force, which I'm opposed to. I think if you let local government do its job, they will do its job, and in many of these cases, much of the violence is the result of people having been provoked by the way that they're being arrested.
Well, being provoked, you don't get to break the law because you've been provoked. In Portland, during the Summer of Love, they set the federal courthouse on fire with federal workers inside the courthouse, and the mayor would not interfere, would not let the local law enforcement officers interfere.
And the mayor was wrong, just like Donald Trump was wrong, pardoning several hundred people who tried to torch the U.S. Capitol building.
Nobody tried to torch the U.S. Capitol building
or deface it.
Okay.
Right. They tried to deface the U.S. Capitol building in order to stop a legitimate government action. That's and what you have. And we see one of those guys that he pardoned is now, threatening to kill the minority leader of the House of Representatives.
Well, when you got 1,500 of them, you got to.
No, I don't think he pardoned all 1,500. No, it was at least 1,000. I think it was. Yeah, But at any rate, that's. I do think we need to. If you're going to have a national police force,
we don't have a national police force.
We don't. But I'm saying if you think the federal government needs to get into policing, you need to have a national police force. I think that would be a very bad decision. I do think that on balance, even though that there are some stupid decisions made every now and then by local governments, I think local law enforcement is still, on balance, a much more effective way to
when
get
local
the job
law
done.
Enforcement decides not to enforce federal law because they don't like the guy that's sitting in the White House, and then they decide that they're going to allow local citizens to do violence against federal officers who are enforcing federal law, then the boss of the federal officers needs to do something to protect the federal officers.
You said that already, and I agree with you.
Okay, well, that's what's happening.
If there is another final thought to be had, Mr. Gilstrap, it is yours.
I'm right and he's wrong.
Nanner.
Neener.
No, he's got an AI implanted in his head. He says that all the time.